my lover. Please show her the most basic respect, Perseus said. Ah, you treat a slave as a lover? You've disgraced the parent family. I regret having given birth to such a thing. Before Perseus could speak, Winnie's expression changed. She looked like she wanted to kill someone. Ivisa, come out. Perseus stopped her with a look and said softly. Under everyone's gaze, Ivisa stepped out of the carriage with a blank expression. Not only the people here, but also the villagers who had come to watch the excitement from not far away. The whole place fell silent instantly. Then came a chorus of gasps and gasps. I think Perseus' situation is indeed understandable, Alan said, staring blankly at Ivisa. Chapter 1:13, Leaving Home Imminent. Everyone, regardless of age or gender, was deeply shocked by Ivisa's beauty. Count Perrin, Countess, please don't worry. All the nobles in the capital know very well about Ivisa's situation. Perseus's purchase of her will not cause any trouble for anyone. I know you may have heard some sensational rumors, but I can tell you with certainty that they are all lies. Please do not believe the rumors. Since Miss Winnie has said so, then Talk didn't finish his sentence. Gina, who had previously been rude to Ivisa, forced a friendly smile. If Perseus had said these words, they would have disbelieved them 1,000 times over. But since it came from Winnie's mouth, they believed it to some extent, no matter how unwilling they were to believe it. That's just how the world is. Perseus, Miss Ivisa can stay at home. Talk made the decision with the air of the head of the household, not even realizing that he had unconsciously used a respectful title. Thank you for your tolerance and understanding, Father. Perseus smiled. Come to my study later. I still have some questions I'd like to ask you. Yes. Miss Winnie, let's not stand outside any longer. Please come in, Gina said, her voice dry. And Miss Ivisa. Oh, Mother, I also have a friend visiting, Perseus said. And what else? You. Miss Katie, come out. It was Winnie who stepped forward. Miss Katie is also my student, and I cover all her room and board expenses. You're too kind. Talk and Gina exchanged a glance and could only manage a wry smile. By the way, Perseus, where's your second brother? Why didn't he come back with you? Gina suddenly remembered something and asked hurriedly. Gade was the apple of her eye. My second brother probably has other plans. He'll be back in a day or two at the latest, so please don't worry, Mother. Oh. Gina then ignored him and enthusiastically took Winnie's hand and led her into the castle. Winnie forced a smile and looked at Perseus for help. Perseus took Ivisa's hand, gesturing for Katie to follow. Although the castle has been in disrepair for many years, it was built with high-quality materials. Although it looks dilapidated, it does not affect its habitability. There are plenty of empty rooms, but many of them have been neglected for years and require on-site cleaning. Gina smiled awkwardly, then naturally handed over this part of the work to Perseus. Actually, all we need to do is clean one room for Ivisa and Katie to stay in. Winnie wanted to squeeze in with them, but Gina was so enthusiastic that she insisted on taking her to stay in their luxurious guest room, which was reserved for VIPs but hadn't been used for a long time. The dual identity of a countess from the capital and a magic academy teacher is still very advantageous. Gina knew that her eldest son, Alan, liked Winnie, and she also admired Winnie's elegant demeanor and her distinguished family background. If these two can eventually become a couple, it would be a tremendous blessing for their family. Therefore, she wanted to show the parent family's hospitality and politeness, so she had Alan personally drive the carriage to a nearby town to buy ingredients. Alan went along eagerly, and before leaving, he asked Winnie what she liked to eat with a big smile. Winnie was very professional in her perfunctory response, barely managing to keep her eyes from rolling to the sky. Perseus had just finished cleaning the room and laying out the sheets and blankets he had prepared beforehand when Talk called him to the study. Talk's study didn't actually have many books. The books on the shelves could be considered antiques, and if properly preserved, they might fetch a good price. It's just a pity. So those aren't antiques, but rotten paper, worthless. You wouldn't even want to burn them for ash. Talk just sat there, not even inviting Perseus to sit down, acting more arrogant than a dog emperor. Perseus, tell me everything you've done in the capital these past few months, and who you've met. Talk said, puffing on his pipe and tapping his fingers impatiently on the table. Father, are you still worried about Ivisa? Perseus asked. Nonsense. You know what kind of person she is. When I heard the news, I wanted nothing more than to rush to the capital and kill you. If it weren't for your older brother stopping me. Haha. Perseus knows how Alan stopped him. His older brother, probably looking terrified, said to his father Since that brat Perseus has already caused such a disaster, why should father go to the capital and walk into a trap? What if he doesn't come back? It would be better to stay at home. It will be easier to escape if necessary. You are really overthinking it, Perseus said. In fact, many lords and ladies share the same thoughts as you, and they are even more worried than I am. During that time, everyone looked at me as if I were a dead man. His Majesty even summoned me to explain. Talk, who was already looking annoyed, almost got ash from his pipe when he heard the last sentence. His face changed instantly. What did you say? You said His Majesty summoned you. Yes, would I dare lie about something like this? Your Majesty, what did His Majesty say to you? His Majesty told me not to worry, that nothing would happen to me, and even praised me for being bold and lucky, saying I had gotten a great deal. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask His Majesty yourself. Nonsense, Tugfrönet. Perseus smiled. I doubt you would dare to speak carelessly about His Majesty. Since that's the case, I have a general idea of what's going on. But seeing your Miss Ivisa makes me uneasy. No matter how down on her luck she is, why would someone like her come to our house? You should take her out in a few days. Anyway, you're an adult now. It's time for you to be independent. Talk continued smoking his pipe, his brow furrowed. Is father trying to send me away? Perseus asked. It's not about kicking you out. It's better for you and us. Anyway, you'll be leaving in a few years. Your older brother is already throwing a tantrum. I told him we have to wait until Gay graduates, no matter what. As for the settlement allowance, I'll discuss it with him when he comes back. But not too many. You know what kind of person your older brother is, Talk added. Perseus remained silent. Don't blame us for being heartless. We had no choice, Talk sighed. For a family like ours, it's already hard enough to just survive. We don't aspire to great wealth. We just want to live a peaceful life. We can't afford and don't want to take any risks. Understand, father. I will not make things difficult for you, Perseus said. Well, it's good that you understand. Go back now. I still need to talk to your mother about this. Perseus left the study. He went to the guest room and found Winnie. She was standing or sitting there, but as soon as she saw him, she rushed over to him. You'd better keep it under control, or my father and the others will find out. Perseus frowned. So what if they found out? I'm about to burst. I really don't want to talk about your mother. She's so annoying. She keeps pestering me about your older brother, but I know him. I know what kind of person he is. Winnie complained incessantly. Perseus smiled and closed the door, then kneaded the dough with his hands to ease Winnie's discomfort. Don't you understand? She wants you to be her daughter-in-law. Pshaw, who cares? There are plenty of noble ladies who want me as their daughter-in-law. What if they knew you were like this? Aren't they the same? There are plenty of women who are more promiscuous than me. You just don't know them, Winnie chuckled. You admit you're promiscuous and dissolute? Yes, but I'm only promiscuous with you. Damn, these big-breasted women have surprisingly pleasant voices. Perseus sat on the bed with Winnie in his arms and lifted her robe. Winnie hugged his head tightly, whimpering, I don't want to stay in your house and be looked at like that by your mother and your older brother. When are we leaving? Let's wait a few more days, Perseus said, his voice muffled. Sigh. All right, as long as you're willing to help me, I'll put up with it a little longer. Winnie's hands started to wander. Stop messing around. We could talk about it tonight. I don't have time to play around with you right now. But, hey, don't bite. It's meat. All right, I'm leaving now. Put your clothes on yourself. While she was letting go, Perseus casually tossed her onto the bed, wiped his mouth, and left. Winnie sighed, savoring the lingering pleasure, and began to hum and whimper again with a smile on her face. Perseus went to Ivisa and Katie's room. Miss Katie, please wait a moment. Then, Perseus took Ivisa's hand and went into his room next door. This is my room. What do you think? Perseus asked. It's been a long time since we cleaned. Ivisa looked around carefully. Actually, this is already the result after cleaning. Don't worry about it too much. Perseus scratched his head. Would you like me to live with you? She asked. No, you and Katie can stay here for a while. Is that all right? No problem. She's not a difficult person to get along with. That's good. Perseus held her as he sat on the bed and began to undress her. Ivia grabbed his hand. What's wrong? Perseus blinked innocently. That's all for now. Ivisa kissed him without any expression on her face. It's not impossible. After the long kiss ended, Perseus went back to his own business, while Ivisa simply watched him silently. It doesn't matter whether you're used to living here or not. We'll be leaving in a few days, and we may never come back. Perseus's voice was muffled. Will you be sad? She asked. Won't. That's good. Ivisa hugged his head and patted it. She made Perseus feel embarrassed. Mother. Chapter 1:14 Dinner. At the dinner table, Winnie was still treated as an honored guest, facing a triple attack from Takina and Alan, yet she managed to barely manage to cope. At the other end of the long table, Perseus and Ivisa Katie ate silently, completely ignoring the situation on the other side. Talk and Gina were country bumpkins who rarely went to the city. They knew very little about the news, let alone the capital, or even the surrounding cities. But when they caught up with Weenies, a big shot from the capital, they were too busy to do anything but find out if all the rumors were true. However, they also wisely avoided some taboos, such as matters concerning Ivisa's family. Even if they accidentally touched on the topic, they would quickly and abruptly stop, then happily start the next topic. Alan would occasionally chime in, but he wasn't really interested in the big or small matters. His eyes were fixed on Ivisa, and he didn't even bother to eat. They all came from the same background, yet Gade would still rack his brains and scheme in the capital, just to gain a foothold in the capital and then plan for greater development. Alan, however, had no such idea whatsoever. During his 4 years in the capital, he was oblivious to everything else, focusing solely on winning over Winnie. Later, when Talk asked him what he had gained from those 4 years, he actually said that he had learned there were indeed more beautiful girls in the capital than in the countryside, which nearly drove Talk, who had high hopes for him, to his death. Alan indeed had no great ambitions. He only wanted to stay in Luke Village as a local tycoon, guarding his small plot of land and the gold coins in his house. It has to be said that he had a clear understanding of life. It's incredibly difficult to succeed in this world if you have nothing. Knowing you can't win by trying, it's wise not to try at all. As a man of such great wisdom, Alan was well aware that Winnie was a woman he could never reach, so after returning from the capital, apart from occasionally missing Winnie and feeling lustful, he didn't stop flirting with girls in nearby villages and towns. Alan was, after all, an earl's heir, even though he had fallen so low that he couldn't even compare to some of the local commoners and wealthy gentlemen. Although he was just a nobody in the capital, he was still considered a very powerful man by many country girls. As far as Perseus knew, this guy had a total of 8 girlfriends, including married women and even widows. Unfortunately, although Alan had a lot of tricks up his sleeve, he's a bit dim-witted. Despite having so many girlfriends over the years, he hasn't managed to seduce a single one of them. Those girls may lack worldly experience, but they're no less shrewd at manipulating men. They were only interested in becoming countesses with Alan, so if Alan wanted them to submit to him, he had to offer something substantial. Sweet talk alone wouldn't fool them. Perseus felt somewhat ashamed of this. Before going to the capital, he was a penniless nobody. Having a noble status, but no money in his pocket, meant nothing to those women. No matter how eloquent he was, it would be difficult for him to marry a girl from a respectable family. In short, if Alan wants to have his way with any of them, he either has to pay them money or give them a title. Recognition is a difficult thing to deal with. Alan knew he would get married sooner or later, but he was very hesitant about which one to marry. He was always picking and choosing and couldn't make a decision. So he only had ambiguous but not close relationships with them. He basically maintained a distant and underground relationship with them. Perseus was getting extremely anxious. If it were him, as long as these women were interested in him, no matter how cunning and cautious they were, he could keep taking advantage of them until he was sick of them. But Alan didn't know how to operate the system. He even naively thought that he had to find true love, so he was always made a fool of by those women and ended up not even getting a bite to eat. Many men just don't understand that so-called true love is nothing but a cheap thing. You rack your brains and devote all your energy to pursuing it, and 9 times out of 10 you end up losing everything, and you'll be mocked by it in the world. You might even want to jump into a river. When you pretend to be aloof and ignore it, it will come crawling back to you. When a man learns to make good use of his advantages, develops steadily, and doesn't believe in those empty romantic notions, he will have everything he needs. Fortunately, Alan is an incredibly stingy person with an exceptionally strong will. Even when he's being made a fool of, those women can forget about getting a single penny out of him. Now that Winnie has arrived, Alan has clearly forgotten all the women who were entangled with him in an instant and is ready to launch his innocent offensive. He is indeed very innocent. Winnie, I've been meaning to ask you this but forgot. Now I suddenly remembered. Can you answer one of my questions? Alan asked with a shy smile. What's the problem? Winnie asked. Have you had a boyfriend all these years? Alan's eyes were filled with undisguised passion. Winnie's face stiffened. Alan, how could you ask Miss Winnie such a rude question? Gina frowned. How is that abrupt? Is it wrong for me to care about my old classmate? Alan protested. Gina hesitated, then smiled apologetically at Winnie. Miss Winnie, please don't mind. You know what kind of person Alan is. He didn't mean any harm by asking this question. He was just concerned. It's okay if you don't want to answer. Topper